Moving moment by moment out of Venezuela, the de facto leader there has now, for the first time, appeared on camera, demanding the immediate release of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, calling their capture a kidnapping. Right now, meantime, Maduro, in that image you see him, it was posted by President Trump. He is on his way to the United States to face drug trafficking charges in the Southern District of New York. Meanwhile, the vice president of Venezuela, Maduro's vice president, her name is Delcy Rodriguez. She just spoke. We've got the audio in now. I want to play for you what she just said to Trump.
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the only president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Coming out against Trump. And that is extremely significant, not just because she saw what happened hours ago to the guy on top of her, but also because President Trump, about 2 hours before that video came out, said that Delcy Rodriguez was on board with the U.S. plan. He said that she was willing to do whatever is necessary to, in his words, make Venezuela great again, and that she was doing what he wanted. Here he is.
Who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro, and right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice.
Okay, we'll do whatever.
See, mainstream media, they want you to believe the narrative that we ran into Venezuela. We didn't talk to anyone that was in power there. We took away something that was important to them, their president, who we all see has narco connections, okay, cartel connections. So do you not think the VP knows that the president has cartel connections? You could tell clearly from the people that were celebrating in the streets that he had been taken out of power. They were happy that he was gone. Very happy. But CNN and mainstream media will want you to believe that we infringed on another country's sovereignty. We want their oil, even though the United States is responsible for where they are right now. Even though. Why would the VP come out and say anything other than what she said? Duh. It's real simple. You can't sit back and say, hey, yeah, I worked with the United States to get him out of office. That would cause a blowback, not just from the cartel people that he was dealing with, but also for people in the administration that probably didn't see it like the VP. So she's got to hold her position. And CNN now wants everyone in America to believe that we violated all of these human rights and these sovereignties and things like that in order to walk in there and to take this guy who is not guilty of any type of crime, even though the Biden administration said that they didn't recognize him as being the legitimate leader of Venezuela. But CNN has a different opinion. And when the people in airports and at some of these other locations where CNN is streamed consistently, daily, indoctrinating with propaganda, believe this and see this, it causes them to get upset. To me, it's common sense. Yes, we're going to let the VP know. Yes, we're going to have him know, but it makes perfectly good sense why Trump said what he said. And he's not lying. I'm pretty sure that she knows. And for CNN to be a mainstream media company that supposedly is concerned with America, concerned with America, you figured they would handle this differently. You figured they would actually give Trump some props. You figured they would care about the cocaine, the heroin that comes in through Venezuela. Obviously not. They don't care. And this is why we don't like mainstream media. This is why I pull from them what I have to, but I have to be very discerning on what they're saying and if what they're saying makes any sense. And in this case, it makes no sense. Even if you present the VP saying, hey, give us back our president, we know, just like CNN knows, just like the VP knows, that Maduro was no good for Venezuela. was no good for any relations, only had cartels and the money that he was making from cartels in mind, in his pocket. And he didn't care about the people from Venezuela, because we can clearly see right now they're celebrating in the streets over what took place. The fact that this guy is no longer in office. So we have to begin to look at things like this from mainstream media and train ourselves to actually be more discerning when we hear them give us these topics and talk about it and their points of view and opinions concerning it, because you can clearly see that there's more at play. We got to discredit Trump. We got to make him look bad.
You need, she said to Marco Rubio, and that she really doesn't have a choice. And she just said, this is a kidnapping and send him back. And
she doesn't have a choice. She knows she never did have a choice. Her choice was to comply or get taken out with him also. And,
essentially thumbing her nose at Trump. All right, Kevin Liptak joins us live from West Palm Beach, Florida. So the timeline, Kevin, is that Trump said what I just played. And then within 2 hours, we got the statement from Vice President Delcy Rodriguez of Venezuela, which I just played. So now we're awaiting Trump's response to that. What does this actually mean? You are there in Mar-a-Lago with the president. What's the response from him?
Yeah, and I don't think it will be a favorable response from the president. He did sound fairly confident that Rodriguez would be going along with this plan. After that press conference, he gave a phone call to the New York Post, and actually Rodriguez came up in that conversation. He was asked if U.S. troops would be on the ground in Venezuela running that country, and what he said was, quote, "No, if Maduro's vice president, if the vice president does what we want, we won't have to do that." And then he goes on to say, we're prepared. We have a second wave that's much bigger than the first one. And so I do think, now that Rodriguez is coming out and suggesting that she is not, in fact, on board with what the United States is doing down there, the president does seem to be setting up the prospect that the U.S. could go in with a second round of strikes. He alluded to that in his.
And so it doesn't make sense to me how you're telling me that the VP doesn't want to ascend to being president and correcting any mistakes made by the current president and working with the United States and making a ton of money, right? That's what you're telling me. Oh, no. Because that's what we see in this conversation that mainstream media, CNN, is actually having towards the people. The narrative that they're painting is that we did something wrong. But in fact, I still believe Trump. I trust Trump right there. I believe him right there. Because no VP would actually allow that to happen and not have some type of military response and call upon the global world to back them up in this. No. NATO, a lot of global countries recognize that Maduro took power. We know it, and we've known it since Biden. She wants power. And of course, she's got to hold that stance which says, I never condone this. I'm not with it. I'm totally against it. And CNN has to brainwash the American people to believe that we infringed on foreign rights, when in fact, we came in and she knew every last bit about it. But hey, everybody needs a good story every now and then. And this makes for CNN's content. Man, like, subscribe, follow for more content. Mainstream media can present the stories, but you got to be careful of the narratives that you listen to from them. Because clearly we know already, the VP knows that the president was working with cartel groups. The VP knows if she came out and said she supported this initiative from the beginning, what would have happened? What would have happened? She would have got taken out by the cartels, or more importantly, down the line, if she comes against the United States in any of this, she knows and she recognizes that if she shows any strength, we all see and we know that Maduro is not the legitimate leader. And she runs the risk now of her actual company, her actual country revolting against her, which the people are already in the streets celebrating Maduro being taken out of power. And now it's left for her to decide, does she go with the cartels or does she back the U.S. and the U.S. play? We'll see. Keeping an eye on this. Like, subscribe, follow for more content. This is The Real Leon Duncan. I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys have a great day.